The pen is mightier than the sword.
Oh yeah? Well, what about the fist?
What?
The fist.
You know I have those too, right?
Well, swords are expensive, okay?
Ladies, gentlemen, and tarnished of all ages, it's time to go sloth mode. What does that mean? Well, sloths ball up their hands into a fist by default and have to put in effort to open them up. In other words, they are nature's fisticuff machine. So if a sloth can do it, why can't you? Fist weapons in Elden Ring are simply extremely underused, and the reasoning is fair, as the main detractor from picking them up is their minuscule range. Combat from a horse, for example, is very, very weird with a fist weapon. That said, every weapon has its weaknesses, and while range is a big deal in combat, fist weapons are just really, really fun. You hear that? Fun! F is for fist, you have one on each arm. U is for your enemies. N is the sound they make when they're hit at close range by fists in their soft bodies. Right, now that we're on the same page, fist weapons are really enjoyable to use. I don't care what people have told you about them. Have you actually gone around and tried them yourself? Played around the concept of the range, understood it, and dealt with it in order to really experience the fun of punching things to death with your almost bare hands, or even with another man's foot that you hold in your hand for some reason, or even another man's decomposing arms. How about a frickin' dragon head that replaces your hands? Fists are where it's at, people, come on! It's not like they do poor damage either. Their actual output on combos is quite high, and they sort of innately have certain benefits and synergies with other things in the game. For example, every fist weapon in the game except for one is a paired weapon, meaning when you try to two-hand it instead of holding it with both hands for some reason, you will whip out a second one from the bag of holding that every video game character has in their back pocket, stick it on, and double up, well, most things. Most notably, weapon buffs like Scholar's Armament or Blood Flame Blade. When it's applied to a fist weapon on your right hand, then you dual wield the weapon, it actually acts almost as if you have doubled the effectiveness of the buff itself. This allows you to mess around with two-handing certain buffs that were never really meant to be applied with that speed. And when you are dual wielding the fist weapons, your power stance moveset is also incredibly fast, as you might imagine for a weapon that is simply an extension of your hands themselves. You can also use this to take massive advantage of talismans like the Rotten Winged Sword Insignia, which increase your damage rapidly with successive attacks, meaning the more that you attack in a short period of time, the more damage the next attack will do, and fist weapons along with daggers have the fastest movements possible for taking advantage of this. On top of this, there is also something like the Godskin Swaddling Cloth Talisman, which gives you HP after a number of successive hits, and of course, for the exact same reasons, this is just way better by default with fist weapons than pretty much any other weapon type in the entirety of Elden Ring. There aren't many fist-specific weapon, Ashes of War sadly, pretty much only Lifesteal Fist. Other than that though, you are locked to the Ashes of War that can be applied to any melee weapon in the game. But that does mean something like Bloodhound Step, for example, is usable, and when you combine Bloodhound Step with an extremely fast weapon as opposed to something like two-handing a colossal sword, the results are very different. For one, of course the movement makes the range issues of fist weapons much less of an issue in the first place, as you can close the gap like no one's business. But then also, as far as using Bloodhound Step as an actual dodge in itself, the easiest way to dodge is to not lock yourself into prolonged animations. So the faster that your weapon attacks are, the faster your recovery time is, and the more ready you are to dodge at a moment's notice. They aren't the strongest weapons in the game, but in Elden Ring you can make almost anything work if you really want it to, and fists require way less to put into them than you might think due to the synergies I mentioned earlier. One of my favorite ways to use fists is of course the Double Dragon Fist build that I made a video about recently. This weapon isn't a paired weapon, but in New Game Plus you can get a second one anyways, and then use them as a proper power stancing combo. The unique skill on them is actually ridiculously incredibly strong when you build around it, as it is for many unique skills, and you also get to walk around without hands instead just having a couple of dragons who live as a part of your human body. There is also the Cipher Pata, a pair of holy fist weapons that stick out from your hand forwards like you are hitting the word of America herself into thine foes. The weapon skill on this one actually goes through shields, letting you break through blocks, which is great for a fist weapon, as usually the way to deal with shields is either high range or big heavy attacks, and fist weapons don't really have either one of those by default. This one also scales exclusively with Faith. To acquire them in the round table hold, head out to the balcony, drop off of it, and then run through the door on your left until you find a bed with a corpse in this weapon waiting to be picked up. Then there is also the Veteran's Prosthesis.
That dude there, I need his prosthetic leg.
His leg?
Yeah,
which is surprisingly impressive as a fist weapon. The weapon skill stabs into the ground, creating a short-range wind blast. Then you can follow up with a strong attack to jump forwards with a lightning-infused slam. This one comes as a reward for killing the boss at the top of Castle Sol in the north of the mountain top of the Giants region. The Clinging Bone fist weapon, which is literally two arms that you just hold in front of your face and then whack things with, they come with Lifesteal Fist and built, which is incredible against humanoid enemies and pretty much useless against anything else. But honestly, it's just really fun to swing your fists at double the length to bop your enemies in the face with bones. You get this one after completing the second invasion that happens in the Round Table Hold. Then we have both of the options for the bleed-based fist weapons, the spiked cestus, which is very basic punching gloves with some spikes on them, and the Star Fist weapon. They have the same amount of bleed on them. The Star Fist is definitely cooler looking, and as far as straight up punch damage, the Star Fist has higher base damage, but slightly worse scaling than the spiked cestus does. There is of course also the regular cestus, which is just exactly the same but without the spikes, and damage-wise is literally just less as a result of not having bleed and not getting more stats to make up for it. This one can be purchased from Gastok the Gatekeeper in Stormvale Castle. Then we have the Iron Ball, which does strike damage and is one of the highest base damage fist weapons in the game. It's a little bit behind the Star Fist though, but it does come with Braggart's Roar as the default skill, and you find this one yourself either by killing Blackguard Boggart outside of the Boil Prawn Shack or completing his story, where you can loot it from him anyways at the end. And then finally is the Katar, which are essentially small swords that come right out of your fist. This one is very sick, and the base skill is Impaling Thrust, though it can be changed. It is relatively unique in that it deals pierce damage as a fist weapon, where strike is very much the common expectation, and with that you know every fist weapon in the game. The different situations that you may want to use them in over the others because of their uniquenesses, and if you do want to use a fist weapon, I would also say it's important to consider the fact that you can use fist weapons as sort of a secondary choice for an extremely small cost. They weigh very, very little, and let's say that you're running something like a two-handed colossal weapon build. You can very easily stick it in your offhand, a fist weapon that best matches your attribute spread, and then you can split very quickly from slow heavy hits to dual wielding super quick slaps, giving you the variety that you need to get through PvP, for example, and the surprise factor in PvP to take your opponent completely off guard. PvP is at least as much about the mind games as it is about the matchup in the first place. If your opponent sees you wielding a greatsword, they expect you to swing at them with a greatsword until the exact moment that you show them that you have other plans. If you use this fist weapon as your main option in PvP though, you will definitely notice the range issues of this weapon type. Someone with a big sword simply has a massive advantage against you just as a default, but that just adds to the fun, you know? So really, that's just what this is. Hey, you, use fist weapons. I know they are super unpopular for the reason of their small range, but if we ignored weapons in the game that aren't outwardly, forwardly, obviously good, we would never find some of the most enjoyable playstyles that are possible. You know what I mean? And so, will you be using fist weapons now? Or are you a longtime fist weapon user disgusted by how long it took me to make this video? Like if you like the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.